This is Richmond Johnston, and our guest today for a quick interview is my friend and champion, Derek Midgley, who will be teaching this season in the Balmoral School. Hello again, Derek.
Hello again. Thank you for having me.
It's great. It's wonderful. Thank you for coming in. So I have a list of questions. Where did you grow up?
Tinton Falls, New Jersey,
And
here in the Great Garden State.
Oh, yes, it is the Garden State. I love New Jersey. Um,
Yeah.
what was your inspiration for piping? What made you want to do it?
Uh, I always enjoyed the sound of it, and my dad was in the army in here, and he always liked the British pomp and circumstance. So we had the LP records of the British tattoos and the pipes and drums, along with the brass bands. So I always enjoyed the sound and all that stuff. My sister wanted to try, and I got dragged along initially to this local band practice. And I didn't want to do it at the beginning, but once it became competitive with my sister, it was who could get the scale first, who could get the grace notes first, and who can get it was Minstrel Boy, who can get Minstrel Boy first, and that was the heck of a thing.
You guys,
But we started together and never looked back.
oh, that's great. Um, I know that you come from a family that's competitive, but your mom was competitive for quite a few years. Almost, was she in the Olympics fencing, or was that just?
She was in My mom became a fencer. My sister was a fencer after she quit the piping. And then she went to college on a fencing scholarship. And then my mom bringing my sister around as the same exact type of thing we do. You bring your kid around all these activities and whatnot, and contests and practices. And my mom took it up, and I think she did some senior Olympics thing. I don't know the exact age, whether it's past 50 or past 60 or something, but she's traveled the world doing that as well. So it's really quite funny. It's all the same story, but a different same thing, but a different type of story with piping or fencing or the next thing, I guess.
She's mighty. Well, and you are as well. I mean, you're a USPBA judge now. You were the first non-UK resident to head the Competing Pipers Association. That's pretty amazing.
Well,
U.S. Piping Foundation overall in 2022, St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia Silver Quake, 2 years in a row, I think, right? Am I
I think,
right?
well, as of this weekend, it's 3 years in a row
Three
for the
years
P
in a
row.
row.
3 years
Congratulations.
in a row.
Great win.
Thanks.
And then Canadian double gold. That was a nice thing right away. And that was the first time you competed there?
Yeah, I was really fortunate, really lucky. I was making sure I showed up prepared, and if your pipes are going and you have a good day, you have a good day.
You did. You had the Dunvegan medal at Skye, too. Was that a beautiful day?
That was a great day too. That took a lot of tries. Skye is always interesting to play at, and the Dunvegan medal is a great honor too.
Yeah, it's really something. It's a giant list. It goes on and on, folks. I've got, the B Marches and silver medal in Northern Meeting Inverness, Second Highland Society London gold medal, Argyllshire Gathering, Oban, Dunvegan medal. It just goes on and on. It's really nice. So you've got to enjoy it at this point.
You
It's
got
not.
to enjoy it, you know. And when you do a lot of piping, I always joke I don't have much of a social life, but that's the go-to joke for this. That's why you can be good at piping. But no, it's about a balanced lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Well, this is, I'm mentioning all of these because you're quite accomplished, but that's not the point of this. It's great. But this competing, has it made you a better piper to do that?
I think so. I think it's not just the main thing. What we do is pipe bands and soloists. I think it drives you forward, and I think that chasing that goal makes you a better player every week, and it's really fun. I think fulfilling to see the journey, to feel the journey, to feel that whatever. I hear a lot of athletes talk about competition, and for them, it's like if the goal is winning, you never feel fulfilled. If the goal is the journey, then you can feel yourself growing as a musician, as an artist, as a competitor, as all these things that make up being what a bagpiper is, I think.
It sounds like you'd recommend that pipers compete, and that it might be good for them to do that.
I think so. I think if we compete, I think just that's the stage. That's our stage. Unfortunately, some people find competing. I mean, I find it very nerve inducing. But if you embrace the nerves, if that's just part of what it is for public performance, I think competing is something we all should do. It's our stage as a bagpiper. It's where we can, you know, craft our art, even though it happens to be some random field somewhere sometimes, or next to um, a Highland Games or a sheep in Scotland, or a generator somewhere. Or that's where we get to play our music. So you got to do it.
I remember our friend Alistair Gillis saying that he played the same whether he was piping for another Silver Star or he's playing for a kindergarten. He played the same way every time.
That's the best way to do it. You got to be a professional. You play your very best. You can't change how you play. Just you're playing for yourself, really, for uphold your own standard and image. You got to play it as much as all these rock bands that tour the country and the world. You got to play the song the same, the 100th time or the 1,000th time as you played the first time, and that enthusiasm comes through, or lack of enthusiasm comes through. You got to just do it and enjoy doing it.
I like that, Derek. I think it's great that you talked about the nerves. You're a top competitor and you obviously have them. I've also heard Bruce Gandy talk about that. I remember, I remember, I don't know if you were there, but I remember uh, Ian Ian Morrison telling me that he was incredibly nervous every time he played. I said, "You mean you're nervous right now?" He was about to go on and play for the students at one of those Thursday recitals, and he said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
how can that be?" He says, "Well, Scott's there. I have to play for Scott. I have to play for whoever." It was funny, but I think it's a good thing to know that you said embrace the nervousness, embrace that because that's what it is, and that's true for everyone.
I think so. I think, we just think it's piping specific. I think it's anything you do, whether it's talking in public at work, or any athlete and any sport, they're all nervous all the time. It's about performance, and it's about, doing it when you want to do it. So that it's about that consistency. And I think I've discovered recently, instead of fighting it, you just sort of embrace it. It's going to be there whether you like it or not. So it's your friend. Nerves are very much your friend, and you should take them on the journey with you, as opposed to spend so much energy fighting, pretending they're not there. It's like, no, you get nervous. I mean, I still make mistakes. I'm sure everyone does, but then it's much more helpful to embrace it as a friend, I think.
It's great because to say that everyone feels it is that's actually really good, and I would think that that's the main reason that people might not do it. Say, "Ah, I can't take it," but
And
everyone's
it is challenging. I've a couple years ago, I took up, I'm not good at it, but I took up running half marathons every so often, once a year, twice a year. And I read somewhere for running, maybe this is applicable to piping. I read that it doesn't get easier necessarily, but you get better at it. So you still have to run the marathon. You still have to play your pipes. You have to play in a contest, but you get better at it. It might be still challenging for the 50th year as the first year, but you get better at doing it. And it's that consistency, and the like a pair of worn-in shoes or old friends.
yeah, I like that.
Something maybe, I don't know.
No, I think it's good. I can relate to that. It sounds great. So, I know that I think it was your first teacher, but I know it was your longtime great teacher was George Bell. How old were
Yes, I always called him Mr. Bell, but yes, he is actually George Bell. Yeah.
how old were you when you started?
Oh, well, I think it was around 14 with George Bell. I had been with that street band when I first started. I think it was 12 or 13. I think
The
that
band?
was a long time ago. And with the Atlantic Watch in Red Bank, New Jersey, they're a local street band, but they were home, and I enjoyed those guys and all the friends that I made, and they're such great people.
I think you've had
And then
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say I think you've had opportunity to pay back to them as well. I think you've taught them a bit, or maybe done some things with
Well,
them.
sometimes, yeah, just hanging out with them for sure. And yeah, they're still great, still around, still great people. Then I found Mr. Bell. I think my mom found George Bell, and I got whisked every week for several years in high school, and up till I went to college, whisked every week to my lesson, 6:30 on Mondays with Mr. Bell, and he was such a force of nature, and he was I don't know how old he was at the time, but it was just so fantastic and intimidating, but fantastic to play to a immigrant and a guy who had shaped piping in New Jersey and the East Coast so strongly. And there was this very timid, I guess 14-year-old. Um, Please, sir, may I have some more? Oliver Twist, almost like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And he would like just throw tunes at me. And what a great couple of years. It really helped shape me as a player and me as everything I could get from him. I was able to try my hardest to learn everything. And yeah, then I went to college, but Mr. Bell was still a force for me, and such a positive force for piping for many years after, till he unfortunately passed away. I think it was 2011, but still, I love him very dearly as my first instructor.
But he certainly taught a lot of great pipers, and that his effect has been felt absolutely on the East Coast, and I think in piping the world. It's and you studied every week with him for a good number of
I
years.
did. I think that's my understanding of what normal is for piping lessons. You go for your weekly lesson, and I remember every week was a cup of tea.
I think
So
it's
I had came back from school, did your homework, quick dinner, and then right up to Parlin, New Jersey. That's where it was, and cup of tea, and out comes a cup of tea, and then sat down, and then you could take in a few minutes of letting yourself acclimate before the having to perform under pressure. There, that trains you like anything else, and that was such a great experience. Like, oh, well, and then to this, that got me on drinking tea from that age, and it was such a great thing. Twining's tea, I believe it was.
a good
Yeah, it's such a great association. You just sort of get your cup of tea, and you're just like taking in all the so classic.
there was some great piper from the past who said that no, people talk about what they have a nip or something before. He says the only thing you should drink before piping is maybe some tea. So, Derek, you lived for a few years in Scotland and
I
uh,
did, I did.
competed there, of course. But how would you say um, I mean, for our listeners out there, what's the difference in playing in Scotland and playing in the United States? Both, it could be any aspect, whether it's competition or just doing jobs or the attitude of piping. What are the main differences?
Oh, I can't even begin to get, this the differences are so strong. I mean, something is just part of, it's their ball game. I always talk about it, how we're just sort of playing at it. And the Scots and piping, I mean, inventing everything that we do, and it's just so amazing. And here we are as Americans specifically, or the rest of the world, the Canadians, New Zealanders, Australians, what have you, trying to honor them and play catch up, and try to play as good as these guys. That I mean, it's different in many respects. I mean, the Scots don't really have as many, say, adult beginners as we do in the United States. I mean, in many cases here, it's like you hear people saying, "Always, I always wanted to play," so they take it up upon retirement or after the kids move out or some opportunity. Whereas in Scotland, it's way more pervasive in the schools, and you don't see, because of that, you don't see as many adult beginners. And of course, everyone knows someone who's a piper, right? I mean, over here you might have a one distant friend or relation if it comes up, but in Scotland, of course, it's everywhere, right? I mean, um, and because of that, there's tons of bands. I mean, gosh, every level of everything from kids bands to grade one bands to grade whatever. I mean, just there's local things. It's just so you can't even escape it if you wanted to. The soloist is just one of those things. Everything's so, well, just go around the games. It's so part of their culture, and having a county games or a town games or a regional annual festival that we might have. Gosh, what will we have? Sort of a state fair almost, except our states are way bigger. So we don't have a county gathering like they might have had, culturally from the past of many generations ago. But then again, we have all these massive St. Patrick's Day parades where we're all, being Irish for a day, shh, for those Scots out there, Um,
Does
but they don't. But
would you say
what's
that
that?
um, is our pipe band supported in schools? Is that
Yeah, well,
like
they've had this huge renaissance of funding for schools and pipe bands in Scotland. So that's if you weren't throwing money at your football program or whatever, whether you're thinking football over here or soccer over there is football. My apologies. Yeah, they've actually started funding. The government has funded music as a cultural thing of Scottish arts. So, and you see, that's fantastic that music has been to the fore of the queue, the front of the queue, if you like, of importance for funding, as opposed to just another uh, school or, beg pardon, athletic program. Not that they don't have athletics. It's just I know that over here, I've seen a lot of our schools around here. I personally, anecdotally, whereas music has kind of taken a back seat in the past few years. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. It's just, but as a piper, it's bad. But
true? I think here the money, if they do, and sometimes it's cut, but they have it's marching band. If those were pipe bands, we'd have a huge number of pipers and drummers to add to our cache of people that can play in this country, and they would have done it from an early age. But since
totally.
our governments don't support it, it makes a I think that's a huge difference between Scotland and here. Or
Well, for sure.
the gods in Brittany, same thing. They,
Yes,
every
yes.
town has its own bagad.
But conversely, I mean, let's be honest with that. I mean, it's a cultural ethnomusicology. So, like, you're not going to get any state or local government picking one art form versus the next, as specific as we're talking about. But Scottish cultural identity is piping, or French, or sorry, Breton. I apologize. As Bigods, but like you're not going to get New Jersey. I'm in Monmouth County. You're not going to get the Monmouth County pipe band. This is not going to, you know, there's all these other, but yeah, so interesting how we frame it. There's these, reminiscent, whether it's in New Jersey, an AOH or a Friendly Sons of Shillelagh or a other club, and then whether it's a Caledonian or Hibernian or these sort of immigrant related, and that's where you're getting this cultural influx that I assume how we're taking it today. I mean, they're sort of passing on from generation to generation. So it's so important that we keep passing the torch. But I think it's just one of the great things these days. The thesis, if you like, is that there hasn't been a huge immigrant wave from those countries in the past 20 years. Whereas it was a few generations ago. For instance, my instructor George Bell immigrated in the 50s to the New Jersey from Scotland. So no, we're not getting that as often. So I don't think there's as many. The density of pipers may not be there, but the numbers sure are. I mean, the numbers, we're still up across the board. Might be a bit spread out though.
That's great, and that's a wonderful insight to that. Yeah, we could get into the schools, but the likelihood is not because it's a Scottish instrument in Scotland. It's going to be much more likely that you're going to get Scottish tax money to pay for it, whereas the United States, uh, that's one nation in all of the nations of the world that go together to build the United States. So that makes perfect sense. In that sense, it's kind of amazing and wonderful that we have so many people that are passionate about it without government support. So it's kind of good. The ones that want to do it uh, are working hard to go there. I like that viewpoint. That's good. Um, Derek, how was you were also, as well as a great soloist, you had some years playing for a top grade one pipe band, Power of Scotland. How was that experience?
Well, that was eye opening in and of itself. I mean, once I was so fortunate to play with Scottish Power for 7 years, and I joined when I moved over there, and then when I moved back, I was commuting for a few years. That got hard and old quickly when you're flying across for 3 days and you're red eyeing over and jet lagging back. Oh my goodness. And it was very challenging, but very rewarding. Scottish Power, Before that, I had played with Toronto Police and with City of Washington for a couple years.
So your pipes.
But Scottish Power, as great as those first two bands were, Scottish Power was such a pleasure. Once you get used to the sound quality and the talent right next to you, everyone around that band, and of course the great pipe major Chris Armstrong, whom I love dearly. He's a great friend and mentor and leader. But a lot of people, the harmonies, the medleys, the hornpipes, it's everyone's favorite thing. But I got used to with the band sound like that. Just give me some old 3/4s or 6/8 marches, and I can just enjoy when you're in that warm, I call it a blanket of tone, right? Just wrapped around you, and it just play anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be the fast, showy stuff. I just love the sound quality that bands like Scottish Power. Of course, just this weekend, Boghall and Bathgate won the major, so their sound, I'm sure, was excellent, as it always is. Field Marshal always excellent. Inverness District shots all the way down, and my guys were Scottish Power, and such an enjoyable 7 years of my life. So yeah, it was great. I mean, everything's so precise. I mean, it's just you don't it never gets old.
I think it's great that you got to have those years of experience from the top band in the United States, City of Washington, all the way to Scottish Power, because that's unusual. So many of the Scottish competitors, soloists, don't play in pipe bands, and you had a good solid 7 years doing it. It's amazing that you did it. It's a lot to handle. How many people do both still? I mean, gee,
Well, a lot more than you think nowadays. It seems to be quite vogue to do, but there's definitely the sort of the solo camp in many respects, and there's the band and solo camp over there, and of course the tons of people just play bands. I mean, it's funny, you think about how many bands in grade one and two and three and four, etc., and then how few people actually play solos comparatively. We have in the Competing Pipers Association, there's a few hundred people, 200 to 300 people. That's it. At all of the grades, and it's just funny to me that like you have all of these tons of grade one bands, and a lot of them are just maybe not interested in Piobaireachd. That's why they don't do it. Which I mean, I love Piobaireachd. The slower the better.
you like
Uh,
it.
I can't. Those fast fingers all these guys got nowadays. No, but yeah, the bands are great. The tone's great. Like I said, doesn't really get old. So
Interesting.
I still enjoy listening to them. But yeah,
Interesting. You say that there's a few hundred. Of course, we're a larger in mass country, but we must have a lot more soloists in this country than.
in USPA, yeah, USPA. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's certainly quite a few. But it's like I said, we're spread out between Maine to Florida to Texas to Ohio. If you had cramped in all of USPA into the size of, say, New Jersey or perhaps even Pennsylvania, or pick a state on the East Coast, man, that would be a heck of a good time. I mean, because you look at that density, everyone would go to all these games, and we could have the attendance would be so astronomical. It would be a whole new thing. And
Be huge.
sometimes I daydream about what USPA could be if it was smaller. Like, you think how small Scotland is in comparison.
I Well, listen, when I first met you, I was in a class at Balmoral, and you came in, and you were a big teenager, but you were a teenager, and we had quite a few years there. How many years did you attend Balmoral as a student, the Balmoral School?
I don't remember. I think it was 4 to 5.
Yeah, it was a good number of
I
years.
think.
So, you have experience there. I want to, what would you say to somebody that's thinking about attending the school, and what you got out of it, and what because you have a you have a good viewpoint from you remember being a kid just starting out, going to the school, and now in retrospect as a champion, you can look back on it. And do people have to gain from coming to the school as a piper?
Well, I love a bagpipe summer camp. I was never really fortunate. I mean, I didn't do. If I say fortunate, I didn't do like other camps, like other kids would have gone to for other stuff. So like my viewpoint, my filter, segue, my onboarding, if you like, into camps was Balmoral, um, and it was so good. I loved everyone got together of every age and ability and range. And I loved how welcoming Balmoral was for me. And I'm still shy. I mean, I was shyer then, but shy kid, tall but shy, tall but shy. And I really enjoyed how welcoming all the instructors and you, of course, were, and all the faculty and staff and the other kids, and then being in a group and from adults to kids, the lessons every day, pushing yourself, the hanging out, the camaraderie of meeting people, so that some people you're competing against, some people you saw growing up and you wouldn't have met. I mean, now everything's the internet, whatever, as we're doing this right here. But in reality, being next to these people every day and knowing meeting people as people, not just as pipers, and having that time together really helps broaden your context of learning. And like I said, it's just enjoying piping for what it is, which is sharing music as opposed to just working grace notes or something. And as it wasn't just the instructors. I mean, it was the fact that you could share stories and issues with other students, and then they might say, well, I do this and I do this and I thought this and I think that. And all of a sudden, even at off hours, you can have these epiphanies and you just go back and practice, or you go back and make a tweak, and all of a sudden you didn't realize that was the answer you've been looking for the entire time. That's why you didn't realize you were coming for that, but that sets you up for the next 3 months of piping, to 6 months of piping. That's that one thing you want to go home and take to the people in your band or your instructor, regular instructor. Say, oh, look what I've shared this, and this is an epiphany. And it's all positive. It's all just positive reinforcement and that spirit of camaraderie within the piping community. And Balmoral is a great place for that. I felt I attended many years, and I'm so happy to be invited back to teach it. So I hope I can bring back some of that mojo, if you like, that positive energy that I experienced to the school. I think it's great.
Well, thank you, Derek. I enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to working with you at the school.
I look forward to seeing you and everyone there. I'm excited.
Cheers.